I still remember the way everyone froze when the bank manager called my name over the loudspeaker. His voice echoed through the marble hall, deep and serious, and every customer turned to stare at me. My heart pounded so loudly that I could barely hear the next words. I stood there, clutching a piece of paper that had started as a joke but was now causing a storm I didn't understand. I could almost hear Grandpa Juma's laughter in my head, the way he always laughed before one of his pranks. But this time, something was different. Something felt real. The day before, the whole family had gathered at our old house in the village. The sun was gentle that afternoon, painting golden lines on the wooden walls. Mama was frying plantains, Papa was laughing with my uncles, and children were running around chasing a stubborn chicken. It was the kind of day when everyone forgot their troubles. That was when Grandpa called for attention. He was sitting in his old rocking chair, the one that creaked with every movement, wearing his white cap and holding a small brown envelope in his hand. His eyes sparkled with mischief, and everyone knew a joke was coming. "My children," he said, clearing his throat dramatically, "today, I will give one of you a gift that will change your life." Laughter filled the room immediately. Auntie Zainab shouted, "Another of your riddles, Baba?" Grandpa chuckled and looked around before pointing at me. "You," he said, "come here, my future millionaire." I walked to him, trying not to smile, because with Grandpa you never knew what was real. He opened the envelope slowly and pulled out a check. It looked old and a little stained, but it had my name written in shaky handwriting. The amount made my jaw drop, 10 million shillings only. Everyone burst out laughing. Papa slapped his knee, Mama covered her face with her scarf, and Grandpa leaned back, wheezing with laughter. "You see," he said between chuckles, "I have made my grandson rich in dreams." I forced a laugh too, but as I looked at the check, something inside me stirred. The numbers were written carefully, not like a joke. Grandpa might have been old, but his jokes always had a purpose. Later that night, when everyone had gone to bed, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake thinking about the way Grandpa's eyes had lingered on me before he laughed. There was meaning in that look, something deeper than amusement. I got up, lit a candle, and pulled the check from my drawer. The signature was shaky, but it was clearly his. I whispered to myself, if it's fake, fine, but if it's real, the thought refused to leave my mind. The next morning, I hid the check inside my notebook and set out for town. The road was dusty, lined with mango trees and goats wandering lazily. I could still hear my family's laughter echoing in my ears, but I kept walking. Grandpa's words replayed in my mind like a song, "If you believe, the Bank of Life will never bounce your check." I didn't fully understand what he meant, but I was determined to find out. When I finally reached the bank, my hands were trembling. The glass doors swung open, and the cool air hit my face. I joined the line, clutching the check, unaware that by the end of that day, nothing in my family would ever be the same again. The line at the bank moved slowly, each step forward tightening the knot in my chest. My sandals left faint prints on the clean white tiles, and the hum of the ceiling fans mixed with the soft murmur of people waiting to deposit or withdraw. When it was finally my turn, the teller, a woman in her 30s with bright red lipstick and sharp eyes, smiled politely. "Good morning," she said. "How can I help you?" I swallowed hard and slid the check across the counter. I'd like to cash this," I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. She glanced at it briefly, expecting an ordinary transaction. But the moment her eyes caught the number 10 million shillings, her smile faded. She blinked, then looked up at me again. "Is this yours?" she asked carefully. "Yes," I said, trying to sound confident. "My grandfather gave it to me yesterday." Her brows furrowed. "Your grandfather," she repeated, flipping the check over to inspect the back. "And what's his name?" "Juma Bakari," I replied. Something flickered across her face. She excused herself quietly and disappeared into a glass office at the back. My heart began to race. The man behind me sighed impatiently, tapping his foot. Two more tellers leaned toward each other, whispering. I could feel every pair of eyes in the bank turning toward me. After a few minutes, the teller returned, accompanied by a tall man in a dark suit, the manager. He smiled, but there was something serious in his eyes. "Young man," he said, "would you mind stepping into my office for a moment?" I followed him, trying to keep my breathing steady. The office smelled of coffee and fresh paper. A large portrait of the president hung behind the desk, watching everything silently. The manager closed the door, gestured for me to sit, and placed the check gently on the table. "Where did you get this?" he asked. I told him everything, how Grandpa gave it to me as a joke, how my family laughed, how I came just to see if it was real. The manager listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. Do you know, he said slowly, that this check number matches an old account in our records. It's been inactive for almost 50 years. I blinked. 50 years. He nodded. The account holder's name is Juma Bakari, same as your grandfather, but there's something else. He paused, looking at me closely. There's still money in that account. A lot of it. My mouth went dry. The air in the room felt heavier. Are you saying it's real? We can't be sure yet, he said, but the handwriting and signature are identical to the original documents. We'll need to verify everything. Is your grandfather still alive? Yes, I whispered. Good, he said, standing up. Tell him to come with you tomorrow. We'll need his identification and a statement. As I left the office, my hands trembled so much I could barely hold the door. The people in the bank were still staring. I walked out into the heat, the check safely tucked back into my notebook. My mind swirled with questions. Why would Grandpa keep such a secret? Was this really a pranker? Had he known exactly what he was doing? The only sound was the rustle of wind in the trees as I hurried home, my heart pounding with equal parts fear and hope. The sun was blazing by the time I reached home, but I barely felt its heat. My heart was burning hotter than the afternoon sky. I burst through the wooden gate, nearly tripping over a stray chicken. Mama was sweeping the yard, her wrapper tied high around her waist. She looked up, startled. Why are you running like you've seen a ghost? She asked. I tried to speak, but my words tangled together. Mama, the bank, the check, Grandpa's check, it's real. She frowned, still sweeping. What nonsense are you talking? That old man and his jokes. I shook my head, panting. No, Mama, listen. The manager said there's an real account in Grandpa's name. It's not fake. Mama stopped mid-sweep. What? By the time I finished explaining, Papa had come out from the house, adjusting his shirt. Aunt Zainab followed, wiping flour off her hands. Everyone gathered in the yard as if I'd announced an earthquake. Papa crossed his arms. Are you sure you heard correctly? Maybe the manager was just humoring you. No, Papa. He checked the records. The account exists, and there's money inside. He said Grandpa must come with me tomorrow. For a moment, there was silence. Only the bleating of a goat broke it. Then, from the doorway, a deep chuckle rolled out. Grandpa. He was leaning on his walking stick, his eyes glowing with quiet amusement. So, he said slowly, the young one decided to test the check. Everyone turned toward him. Baba, Papa began carefully. What is this? Did you really open a bank account with so much money? Grandpa walked closer, each step deliberate. He stopped in front of me, his wrinkled face unreadable. And what did the bank tell you, child? I swallowed hard. They said it's real, Grandpa. They said you need to come tomorrow to verify it. He looked at me for a long moment, then did something unexpected. He laughed. A low, hearty laugh that made Mama glare at him. This is not funny, Baba, she scolded. Grandpa wiped a tear from his eye. Ah, my children, you always think laughter means foolishness, but laughter hides wisdom. He turned to me again. Do you know why I gave you that check? I shook my head. Because you listen with your heart, he said softly. The rest laughed, but you looked twice. That's how life works. Those who dare to look deeper find treasures others overlook. Papa sighed. Baba, stop speaking in riddles. Is there really money or not? Grandpa smiled faintly. There is, but it was never about the money. It was about faith. His tone changed suddenly, lower and serious. 50 years ago, I sold a piece of our ancestral land. Everyone called me foolish for trusting a bank. I saved that money for the one descendant who would dare to believe. Mama gasped. Papa just stared. I felt my legs go weak. Grandpa placed a hand on my shoulder. Tomorrow, he said, we'll go to the bank together. And then, you'll understand the rest. The air felt thick with questions and awe. Even the birds in the mango trees seemed to fall silent. Grandpa smiled one last time before heading back inside, his stick tapping rhythmically on the floor. Like the heartbeat of a secret waiting to be revealed, morning came heavy with anticipation. The house, usually filled with the clatter of pots and children's laughter, was unusually quiet. Even the rooster seemed to crow more cautiously that day. Grandpa was already awake, dressed in his best brown coat, the one he wore only for weddings and funerals. Mama had ironed it the night before, muttering prayers under her breath. Papa, meanwhile, polished his old shoes and kept glancing at the clock. I barely ate breakfast. My stomach churned with a strange mix of excitement and fear. The check felt heavier in my pocket than it had yesterday, as if it carried more than just paper, as if it carried destiny. Grandpa sipped his tea slowly, eyes distant, like someone revisiting memories only he could see. When we finally set out for the bank, the village seemed to watch us go. Neighbors whispered, curious. Where are they going dressed like that? Maybe to see a lawyer, someone guessed. Grandpa just smiled and waved, his walking stick tapping softly on the dusty road. The journey to town felt longer than usual. Each step echoed with the memory of Grandpa's words. Those who dare to believe will always find a way. I couldn't tell if he was proud or testing me again. When we reached the bank, the manager was already waiting, standing at the entrance with the teller from yesterday. They greeted Grandpa with great respect, guiding us into the same office. The air inside was cool, but my palms were sweaty. Grandpa sat down slowly, leaning his stick against the chair. The manager cleared his throat. Sir, we verified the account you opened in 1975. It's still active. The funds were untouched all these years. Papa's mouth fell open. Mama gasped quietly. Grandpa only nodded, his face calm. We also confirmed, the manager continued, that this check was written by you. The signature matches perfectly. Would you like to withdraw the amount or reactivate the account? Grandpa turned to me and smiled. Tell him, he said. I froze. Me? He nodded. It's your check, isn't it? You believed when others didn't. The manager looked at us curiously. Sir, are you saying you want to transfer the funds to your grandson? Grandpa didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked around the room, eyes glistening with age and memory. When I was young, he said softly, I worked under the sun from dawn to dusk. I saved every coin I could because I knew one day, my children or their children would need a reminder that patience and faith never waste. He turned back to the manager. Yes, transfer part of it to my grandson, the rest will remain in the account for something greater. The words hit me like thunder. I couldn't speak. Papa put a hand on my shoulder, his face a mixture of pride and disbelief. Mama's eyes shone with tears, as the documents were prepared. Grandpa leaned closer and whispered, You see, child, a joke can be the mask of truth. People laugh because they fear believing. I looked at the old check again, once a prank, now a symbol of faith rewarded. The moment felt unreal, like a dream I had walked into by accident. When we left the bank, Grandpa raised his head toward the bright sky and said quietly, The check of destiny has been cashed. As we walked home from the bank, a strange silence followed us. Even the chatter of the marketplace seemed distant, like the world had paused to listen to our story. Grandpa moved slowly but proudly, his cane striking the ground in rhythm with his steady breathing. Papa carried the new documents from the bank, tucked neatly in his jacket, while Mama walked beside me, still shaking her head in disbelief. At home, the entire compound was waiting. Word had already spread in the village, news traveled faster than wind. Aunties, cousins, even curious neighbors had gathered, whispering and speculating. The moment Grandpa stepped through the gate, everyone stood. Baba, tell us it's true, shouted Aunt Zainab, unable to contain herself. Grandpa smiled faintly. Sit, my children, let me talk before the sun hides her face. We gathered around him like schoolchildren waiting for a lesson. He sat on his old rocking chair, the same one from the night he gave me the check. For a moment, he said nothing, just watched the faces before him. The air was thick with tension. My grandchildren, he began slowly, this world hides its treasures in strange ways. Some people search all their lives for gold, not knowing that wisdom is worth more. Papa leaned forward impatiently. Baba, we understand wisdom, but please, what is all this about the money? Why did you never tell anyone? Grandpa chuckled softly. Ah, my son, because you would not have believed me. You see, many years ago, I sold a small piece of our land to a trader from Mombasa. Everyone laughed, said old Juma had gone mad for trusting paper over soil. But I believed that the world was changing, that one day the children of this family would need to walk both on the earth and in the world of paper. He looked at me, his eyes gleaming. When I gave you that check, I wanted to see if anyone in this house still had courage to believe in something unseen. Mama pressed her hands together. So this was all a test. Grandpa nodded. A test of faith, of curiosity, of action. You all laughed. But this boy, he pointed his cane at me. He didn't, he questioned. He moved. Life rewards those who move. The crowd murmured softly. Some smiled. Others wiped tears from their eyes. Grandpa leaned back, his voice steady. That money was never a prank. It was a seed, sleeping beneath the soil of time. You, he said, turning to Papa, will use part of it to help our family. But the rest, it will build something for the village. A well, a library, maybe even a school. Let the people drink from the fruits of patience. Papa nodded slowly, overcome with emotion. Mama's eyes glistened. Grandpa looked at me one last time. Remember, child, the value of a check is not in the paper, but in the belief behind it. When people laughed, you believed. And belief, my son, is the true currency of life. The wind picked up gently, rustling the mango leaves above us, carrying his words like a sacred echo. That night, the laughter returned to our home, but this time, it carried gratitude, not doubt. The days that followed felt like living inside a dream. The story of Grandpa's fake check had become a legend in the village. Everywhere I went, people stopped me on the road. Some clapped me on the back, calling me the boy who believed. Others joked, asking if I could sign checks for them too. Even the bank clerks greeted me with new respect when I passed by. But inside our home, something deeper was changing. Papa had stopped doubting Grandpa's strange ways. Mama, who once called his jokes childish, now treated him with newfound reverence. Grandpa, however, remained the same, calm, smiling, and full of riddles. He spent his afternoons sitting beneath the mango tree, humming old songs from his youth, as if the world's noise no longer concerned him. One evening, as the sun melted into orange light, Grandpa called me to sit with him. His voice was softer now, weaker, but still carried authority. "Tell me, child," he said, "what did you learn from all this?" I thought for a moment before answering. "That faith can turn even a prank into a blessing." He smiled faintly. "Good. But remember, faith without action is only a dream. You believed, but you also acted. The check would have remained paper if you had not gone to the bank." He paused, looking toward the horizon where the sun met the hills. "When I was young, I was laughed at for believing in things people could not see: the value of education, the promise of saving, the strength of patience. Many mocked me, even friends, but I learned that sometimes, laughter is the disguise of fear." I listened silently, every word sinking into me like rain into dry soil. He continued, "This money is not meant to make you rich, my son. It is meant to make you wise. You will use it to build something that lasts longer than your lifetime. Do you understand?" I nodded. "Yes, Grandpa." He smiled again, his eyes glistening. "Then promise me one thing: that you will never laugh at someone's dream, no matter how foolish it seems, because the world's miracles often wear the mask of madness." I promised. That night, the family gathered for dinner. Grandpa told stories about his youth, tales of colonial days, how he had hidden from soldiers, traded coconuts for books, and dreamed of a world where his children could read and write freely. We laughed, but now we listened differently, with respect, not amusement. As the moon rose high, Grandpa lifted his glass of tea and said, "To faith, to patience, and to the courage of this young man who believed." Everyone cheered, and for the first time in years, the old house felt alive with more than laughter, it pulsed with meaning. Later, as I lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. I thought about how close I'd been to ignoring that check, how easily I could have dismissed it like everyone else. Maybe destiny hides behind small, ridiculous things: a laugh, a prank, a piece of paper. And sometimes, only belief can reveal their truth. I drifted to sleep with Grandpa's words echoing in my heart. Life pays only those who dare to cash their courage. Weeks passed, and our lives began to settle again, though something inside me had changed forever. The old check, now framed in glass, hung proudly in our living room. Visitors would stop to stare at it, whispering like it was a sacred relic. But for me, it was more than a piece of paper. It was a reminder that faith, no matter how small, could rewrite destiny. Grandpa had become the village hero. Children followed him around like chicks after a hen, begging him to tell the story of the magic check. He would laugh and tap his walking stick. "Ah, my grandchildren," he'd say, "it wasn't magic. It was courage wearing the mask of foolishness." The plan to use the remaining money began to take shape. Papa and the elders met under the big baobab tree to decide what legacy Grandpa's act should leave. Some wanted a water well, others a community library, but Grandpa said quietly, "Build a school. Knowledge is the only wealth that multiplies when shared." The whole village came together like never before. Men cleared land, women cooked for the workers, and the youth carried bricks and sand. Even children helped by fetching water. I helped design the signboard, "Juma Bakari Memorial School, the Bank of Belief." Grandpa smiled when he saw it, his wrinkled face glowing with pride, but behind his smile, I sensed something fading. He had grown weaker, his steps slower. One night, I found him sitting alone under the mango tree, looking up at the stars. "Grandpa," I said softly, "why are you out here?" He smiled gently. "The stars remind me of the days I had nothing but dreams. You see, child life is a circle. I started with nothing, but I will leave something that will outlive me. That is the true check I wanted to cash." My chest tightened. "Don't talk like that," I whispered. He chuckled. "Ah, don't be afraid. Old age is not death, it's the sunset before dawn. Then he took my hand and placed something small in it, a folded piece of paper. Keep this, he said. When the time is right, open it. The next morning, Grandpa didn't come out for tea. Mama knocked on his door, then screamed. We all rushed in. Grandpa lay on his bed, peaceful, smiling, as if still dreaming of laughter. The walking stick rested beside him. The village mourned for days. The school was completed a month later, and during its opening ceremony, Papa read a letter Grandpa had written before his death. It said, "To those who think jokes are foolish, remember that life itself is the greatest joke, and only the wise know when to laugh and when to believe. Teach the children that the richest man is the one who leaves behind hope." I looked at the school building, tears burning my eyes. Grandpa's prank had become his prophecy. Years have passed since that day, but the memory still glows in my heart like a lantern that never goes out. The school stands proudly at the edge of the village, its white walls shining under the African sun. Children's laughter fills the air every morning, the same laughter that once mocked a simple piece of paper. Only now, it carries meaning. Every time I walk past the gates of Juma Bakari Memorial School, I feel Grandpa's presence, watching, smiling. I often stop by his grave beneath the mango tree, the same place where he told his final stories. The wind always seems to whisper his words. Faith is the only currency that never loses value. The framed check still hangs in our living room, now a little faded but more precious than gold. People from nearby villages come to see it, calling it the check of destiny. But I know the truth, it wasn't the check that changed our lives. It was the belief behind it. After Grandpa's passing, life moved forward, yet something sacred remained. The villagers treated the school as a temple of knowledge. Children who once roamed barefoot now recite poems, solve sums, and dream beyond the horizon. Every year, on the day Grandpa died, we hold a storytelling evening under the stars. The elders sit on mats, and I tell the tale how one man's prank became the seed of a generation's hope. Once upon a time, I begin. There was a grandfather who gave his grandson a fake check. The children always gasp, their eyes wide, just like mine had been years ago. And when I tell them that the check turned out real, they cheer and clap. But I always end with Grandpa's final lesson. It's not the paper that makes you rich, but the courage to believe when others laugh. Sometimes, after everyone leaves, I sit alone under that same mango tree. The moon filters through the leaves, and I think of how close I came to throwing that check away. How easily I could have joined in the laughter. But destiny had other plans. It was waiting for faith to awaken it. I opened the folded paper Grandpa had given me only after the school was completed. Inside, written in his shaky handwriting, were these words: "The world will call you foolish before it calls you wise. Don't wait for permission to believe." Those words have guided my life ever since. I became a teacher at the very school built in his name. Every time I stand before my students, I tell them, dream big, act boldly. The universe respects courage. Sometimes, when I hand out their report cards, I see their tiny hands hold them as I once held that old check, full of wonder, full of hope, and I smile, knowing that Grandpa's lesson still lives. The story that began with laughter ended with legacy. The prank became a prophecy. The fake check became our future, and whenever I hear the sound of children reading aloud, their voices rising like music across the fields, I whisper to the sky, "Grandpa, the bank of life never bounced your check."